Hi everybody, Miscellaneous here and welcome back to my channel. This is where I take you to see offbeat and quirky hidden gems of tourist attractions. I'm also very much into history, so I'll be taking you to some historical places too. I'm also a big advocate for British tourism, so we'll be going to some British seaside resorts. I'm also a tad macabre, some may say ghoulish, and I like to nose around cemeteries and historical crime scenes. On that vein, I want to say a big thank you for supporting me with my 10 Rillington Place vlog. Thank you for all the views, all the likes, and for all the subscriptions to my channel. It is much appreciated. Let me introduce today's vlog. I've been to the Magdala Tavern in Hampstead. It's where Ruth Ellis, the last woman to be hanged in Britain, shot her faithless, abusive lover, David Blakely, dead. Now that happened on Easter Sunday, April the 10th, 1955. Ruth Ellis was hanged for her crime on July the 13th that same year. Here's David Blakely and Ruth Ellis. They're a very good-looking couple, aren't they? There is a big disparity in their backgrounds, though. Born in Wales, Ruth was a working-class girl. Now she was a nightclub hostess managing a club in London. Blakely was from an upper-middle-class wealthy background. He was a racing driver. He was a bit of a playboy. Indeed, neither Ruth Ellis or David Blakely were faithful during their relationship. Blakely could be very handy with his fists too. He once beat Ruth so badly that he caused her to miscarry their baby. Much has been mentioned on social media recently about the crime, probably due to this series being shown on ITV at the moment. I binge-watched A Cruel Love, which features Lucy Boynton and Laurie Davidson as the main characters. I then immediately searched out a film I saw in the cinema in 1985 when it came out. I found it enthralling. Dance with a Stranger featured Miranda Richardson and Rupert Everett as Ruth and Blakely, and it's a very melodramatic telling. Which version did I prefer? Now that's a difficult call as they are both very different. In A Cruel Love, we get to hear about Ruth's court case and her life in prison awaiting execution, whereas in Dance with a Stranger, the film more or less stops at the point where Ruth shoots Blakely dead. I will say this though, I think Dance with a Stranger has the advantage that Miranda Richardson and Rupert Everett naturally resemble the characters they're playing more. I'm not going to go into lots of details about the crime itself, as it's been really well documented. On that note, you might enjoy watching these. Here's the Ruth Ellis Files, a 3-part series available on BBC iPlayer. It takes a modern investigative look at the case and asks why it was treated as such a cut-and-dried case. It also questions Desmond Cusson's involvement. Now, Cusson was Ruth's wealthy benefactor. In a statement made to police while she was awaiting execution, Ruth stated that Cusson had driven her to the murder scene, he'd also provided her with the gun, and he'd taught her how to use it. As well as being her friend, Cusson was also Ruth's sometime lover and said to be infatuated with her. In The Real Ruth Ellis, which is currently featuring on ITVX, we get to hear from Ruth's grandchildren, and they describe how the story affected them. We also hear from David Blakely's nephew. Now, he was a boy at the time, and he describes his infamous uncle as charming. I think this is a reminder that we can't divide people into all good or all bad. The average person is a mixture of both of these elements. And where do I fit in? Let me show you this still taken from Dance with a Stranger. I apologise for the grainy quality of this photo. To the left you can see the Magdala Tavern, and to the right the churchyard and the railings that Ruth Ellis lurked behind whilst waiting for David Blakely to leave the pub. Only it's not the Magdala Tavern. I'm going to take you to where it was really shot though. It was somewhere that was considered more photogenic. After that we will be going to the real Magdala Tavern and I will show you the marks on the wall. Were they caused by the bullets discharged from Ruth Ellis's gun? Come and take a walk in my shoes. Don't forget to give me a like. Do subscribe to my channel and click on the notifications bell. I will see you in the video.
Here we are in Clerkenwell Close. Technically speaking, we're in the London Borough of Islington, but we're a stone's throw away from Hatton Garden and the financial district of London. The church in front is St James Church. It was built between 1788 and 1792. Behind that, you can see the railings that Ruth Ellis sculpted behind. Or rather, Miranda Richardson as Ruth Ellis, to be precise. The church is very majestic, and I can see why the filmmakers used this area. The pub is called the Three Kings. It was originally called the Three Johns, but renamed in 1783. This current building dates from 1871. So there you have it, the pub which stood in for the Magdala in the 1985 film Dance with a Stranger. Off topic now, but Clerkenwell looks like a decent place to hang out in and have your lunch, or a cup of coffee, or a pint. You're also near to the London Metropolitan Archives, and they focus on London history from 1067 to the present day. I have been there. You definitely can't film in there though. It's one of those places where all you can take in is your notepad and a pen. I'm in Hampstead now, and do check out my blog as I've got more things about Hampstead on there. Before we go to the Magdala, I'm at 29 Tanser Road. Now this was where David Blakely was staying on the Easter weekend of 1955 with his friends the Findlaters in the second floor flat here. Ruth had been telephoning repeatedly, to the extent that the Findlaters put the phone down on her and took it off the hook. She'd also been around trying to speak to David. On the evening of Easter Sunday, Desmond Cusson drove Ruth here from Kensington, where she had been living, only for her to see Blakely jump into his car and drive away. She tracked him down to the nearest pub, which was the Magdala. Why wasn't Cusson's involvement investigated in more detail by the police? Well, I think for two reasons. Firstly, it was a cut-and-dried case, and they probably thought, why bother? After all, Ruth was seen killing Blakely. Also, she admitted to the murder. Secondly, Cusson was from a wealthy background. Like David Blakely, in those days these things mattered, and Ruth was from a lower class. Also, the harsh morals of the 1950s dictated that women fell into two types of category. You had the nice girls, and then you had the other kind of woman. Ruth Ellis, with her perfectly made-up face, peroxide blonde hair, red nail enamel, and careers as both a model and a nightclub manager, certainly fell into the latter category. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I've often found the morality of that day very, very offensive. And have attitudes changed that much? I don't think enough. To give you some perspective, Tanser Road is less than 10 minutes walk away from the Magdala Tavern, also known locally as the Magdala or simply the Maggie. We're walking down Parliament Hill now, and I love the Art Deco architecture of Parliament Court to the left. Isn't it spectacular? We are within sight of the Magdala Tavern now. One version of events, and I have heard more than one version, dictates that Ruth secreted herself in the doorway of Henshaw's newsagents next door to the Magdala. That's the darker, grey-framed building here. She waited for David to leave, and eyewitness accounts do recall her looking through the windows into the pub. Incidentally, the Magdala is named after the British victory in the 1868 Battle of Magdala. It was actually closed when I went. It was before 11 o'clock, so I didn't get to go inside for a drink. But I will be back. David left through this door, and as he walked towards his car, Ruth called his name and then shot at him. The first shot missed, and he ran around his car, trying to get away from her, but the second shot failed him. Ruth then stood over him and fired 3 more shots into his body. The final bullet jammed, and a passerby's account did recall the repeated clicking of the gun as she tried to fire it. Again, accounts differ. I have heard that she was firing at him. I've also read that she put the gun to her head. Either way, she dropped the gun onto the pavement and the final bullet was discharged, injuring the thumb of a passerby. Another version of events is that she was waiting right here by the railings for David to leave the pub before murdering him. That is how it was depicted in Dance with a Stranger. The hanging of Ruth Ellis marked a seminal point in British history. In 1957, diminished responsibility as grounds for murder was added to British law. Her case was also one of a handful of cases that increased the movement calling for the abolition of capital punishment. That happened in 1965, when you could no longer be hanged for committing murder. We are right by Hampstead Heath Overground Station. You can hear the trains in the background. I must show you these babies though. Are these the original bullet holes caused by Ruth Ellis firing her gun? We do know that 2 bullets went astray. I did come across something online where a man had talked to a local lady, and she'd been a barmaid here in the late 70s. She insisted that yes, of course the bullet holes were real. But is that the truth, or is this folklore that she was fed? I have also read that in the 1990s, a rather inventive landlady got her brother to drill holes in the wall. She thought it would make the Magdala more appealing to sightseers, and therefore drag more customers through the door. Now that's good business sense if ever I heard it. What do you think? Real or fake? Let me know in the comments.
Thank you for watching, and I do hope you enjoyed the video. For me, the saddest thing about this whole story is the fact that both Ruth Ellis and David Blakely were under the age of 30 when they died. It's so sad. If you haven't watched my 10 Rillington Place vlog, then the link is at the end. I've also left you a link to some more Hampstead vlogs that you might enjoy. Remember to give me a like and subscribe to my channel, and do click on the notifications bell. Come and see me soon for another miscellaneous adventure. Until then, ta-ta for now.